This project is called the Positive Negative Space Project, and it's going to show the outline of your favorite animal or what you consider to be your spirit animal. Half of your project is going to be a black silhouette on a white background, or the positive space side. And the other half will be a white silhouette on a black background, which will be the negative space side. As you can see, this image is a complete silhouette of a dog. That means that it only includes the outline, no interior features. To get started on this project, we're going to have to turn to the internet. If you have an image of an animal that you took on your own phone, then you are free to use that image. However, if you don't plan on using your own photography, we will need to make sure that we safely Google images that are safe to use. For my example, I'm going to Google a flamingo. Once we Google, we want to come over to images. And then using tools, we're going to select the usage rights and click on Creative Commons licenses. Always make sure for your projects that you are using photos, not graphics or cartoons. Using a graphic or a cartoon as your photo is considered cheating and will result in a failing grade for this assignment. For our silhouette project, we want to make sure that we are working with a full body image of an animal. So cropped images such as this or this are not going to work very well. We also want to make sure that we are working with a high quality image. So when you click on an image in Google, if it appears too small, there's a good chance it might not work for our project. In this case, I also want to make sure that my flamingos are not standing in water because it creates a natural crop. I want to be able to get the full body of the flamingo. And if I'm having a hard time finding something on Google, I can always come over to pixabay.com, which is linked in your digital sketchbooks. And I can Google flamingo here, or search flamingo here. This will also produce free and use images that I can use for my artwork. When I find one I like, I'm going to click on it, right click, save image as. And then you should always save your work in a folder that you can find under a name that you can find it under. Once I have my image, I'm ready to come over to Adobe Illustrator. Notice that this image of the flamingo that I've chosen has the flamingo standing tall. The flamingo is taller than it is wide. So when I come to Illustrator, I'm going to come to File, New, or just press Create New. I'm going to title my work with my last name and the name of this project. And the orientation that I select is going to depend on the image that I chose. If your animal is taller than it is wide, then select Portrait. If your animal is wider than it is tall, then select Landscape. Make sure that your project is measured in inches instead of points or anything else, and then press Create. The first thing I'm going to do is rename Layer 1 my source image. This is going to be very important, and it's going to be something that you're going to do for every single assignment that you do forward. Whenever we are working from a source image, it should be on its own layer. To place my image, I'm going to come up to File and select Place. Then I'm going to find the folder where I saved my work, and I can search it to quickly find it because I saved it as a name that I can find. And then I'm going to click Place. When I'm placing my artwork on my artboard, I want to hold down Shift on my keyboard while I click and drag to place my artwork to be the appropriate size. You'll see that because I got this image off of Pixabay, it's covered in the iStock photos. That's okay. I'm not going to need this photo for very long. I'm going to continue to resize this photo until it fills my artboard nicely with just the part that I need. When I'm done, I'm going to lock my layer by clicking on the blank area between the eyeball and the layer color. And then I'm going to come down to the Create New Layer icon to add a new layer. I'm going to name this layer my silhouette or outline, whichever you prefer. Now I'm ready to start tracing the outline of my animal using the pen tool. To do this, first I'm going to select my pen tool. Next, while I'm outlining, I want to make sure that I have a stroke but no fill so that I can see what I am doing the whole time. I can do this by clicking the swap button here, which will give me no fill and a stroke of white. I'm going to change that white to be black so that I can see what I'm doing. So you should have no fill and a black stroke. Next, I'm going to zoom in so that I can really see what I'm doing. It's okay if your image is a little pixely as you zoom in. As long as you can still see the texture of the animal that you are tracing, you're good to go. I'm going to pick a place where I want to start, and I'm going to start by placing an anchor point using my pen tool. From here, I'm going to click every place I want to place an anchor. I recommend placing your anchors very close together so that you have a smooth outline of the animal that you're tracing. You want to make sure that your outline doesn't get jagged, which will happen if you start placing your anchor points too far away from one another. That will cause your artwork to look less realistic and honestly, a little lazy. So you want to just click, 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 going all the way around. And the nice thing about this is that you don't have to be the best artist in the world to do this. All you have to do is be able to identify where the edge of your animal is before you are looking at the background. And you want to make sure that you are only tracing the outline of your animal, not any interior detail. As you can see, I am using my scroll button on my mouse and my arrow tools down here at the bottom of my artboard so that I can navigate and continue my line to be one continuous line. If you place an anchor point that you don't like, you can just press Ctrl Z to undo it. Or if you press 2 that you don't like, press Ctrl Z again. If you accidentally end your line, that's okay, but we need to resume it so that we have one continuous line going all the way around our animal so that we can turn it into a vector. So if you end your line by accident, you can pick it up again simply by clicking on the previous anchor point and then resuming your work. Now we're going to do 1, 2, skip a few, and then I'll be done. As you are approaching the end, you want to make sure that you click on your last anchor point should be the very first anchor point that you placed. That will naturally end your line. As you can see, for the legs of my flamingo, the feet connected down here, so I went around. I still have to fill in this section in the middle, which I'm going to do very quickly now. Any place where you can see through to the background, you want to make sure has its own vector. So my flamingo will actually be made up of 2 separate vectors. Once you are done, you are ready to select your line And then simply just swap your stroke with your fill so that your fill is black and your stroke is none. So you can see from my flamingo, this is why it was going to end up looking really funny. So I made this vector in the middle to show the hole between the flamingo's legs. I'm going to swap this as well, but for the fill here, I'm going to select white. You'll see why in a second. Now I have my flamingo silhouette. Once you're at this point and you have a solid, clean silhouette with no jagged edges, that shows that you put in a lot of effort by placing your anchor points close together, you're ready to delete your source image layer. You can do this by just clicking on the source image layer and then clicking on the trash can icon at the bottom of your layer palette. And then select yes to say that you're sure you want to delete it. From here, if you need to resize or replace your image, your silhouette, I'm actually going to make mine a little bit bigger, and I'm going to hold down Shift to do so. You always want to make sure you're holding down Shift when you are resizing anything, because if you don't, you can accidentally make something too short and fat or too tall and skinny. We don't want to skew our images. We want them to be proportionally accurate. The next step is to create another new layer. And this time you're going to double click to name it the background. On this background layer, you're going to take your rectangle tool. Make sure your fill is set to white and your stroke is set to none. And you're going to place a giant rectangle that covers your entire artboard. When you first place it, it's going to cover your silhouette because the background layer is on top of the silhouette layer. We can fix this by selecting the background layer, clicking and dragging it, and placing it underneath the silhouette layer. The last step of this project is going to be to cut both my silhouette and my background in half so that I can have one side with positive space and one side with negative space. So to start this, I'm going to select both my background and my flamingo by either holding down Shift and clicking on both of them, or I can draw an invisible box around everything using my selection tool. Next, we need what's called your knife tool. It's hiding usually under the eraser tool. It looks like a knife with a jagged edge. Your knife tool works by cutting an image, or actually a vector, into chunks, however you would like to cut it. When we're using the knife tool, we always have to start in the gray area and end in the gray area. You can choose to cut your silhouette however you want. The knife tool works by free drawing, so straight lines can be a little bit difficult. It takes a practiced hand to draw a straight line. If you're trying to get a straight line that goes straight down the middle, you may have to try a few times. If you don't want to do a straight line, you could also do a curvy line. Or you can go across the diagonal and go for a jagged line. You could also go across horizontally. Whichever you choose. I'm going to demonstrate using a wavy line. So notice that I'm going to start in the gray. I'm going to click and hold my mouse until I've ended in the gray work area below. Next, I'm going to take my selection tools and I'm going to pick a side that's going to change from black on white to white on black. In this case, it's going to be my right side. All I'm going to do is select my vectors on the right, which you can now see are cut up into sections. And I'm going to change the fill to be white for everything that's on this side. Then I'm going to change my background over here to be black. As you can see, I still have the middle vector as well that I have to change to be inverted. Now I have an image that is half positive space, which means black on white, and half negative space, which means white on black. When I'm ready to turn it in, I'm going to go to File, Save As, find my digital art folder, and save it as an AI. Then I'm going to come to File, Save As, and save a PDF copy to turn in. When I turn in my work, I'm going to turn in both the PDF that I've saved and the source image that I saved to create this photo. So you should be turning in the photo that you Googled or searched on Pixabay, as well as your PDF project on Google Classroom.